Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games, Book 3, Mockingjay, Chapters 1, 2, and 3 of Part 1, The Ashes. In these chapters, Katniss returns to District 12 to see what's left, and we get an impression of what it's like living in District 13. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where dead men called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
Okay, we've got a whole new book, a whole new vibe.
Whole new.
How are you feeling about this one from how it starts off?
To be honest, it's a little disorienting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything has switched, and it happened, really fast, especially for me, because I didn't have to wait between books, I just went right from one to the other. And, it's I don't want to say a letdown, because that's not exactly what I mean. But the reality of what District 13 is, like, I don't know, I guess maybe there was a part of me that was thinking that there was going to be some kind of, like, rebellion, like, utopia that exists.
Mm-hmm,
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the reality of how this society has to function and how, in order to survive, and how restrictive it is, and how devoid of any sort of joy it appears to be, is almost like, but at what cost, sir?
Yeah, that's like you say, like, it has to be this way. They've got to stay out from above ground because they can't let anybody know how to get in, how many of them are left, that there are any left at all. Like, all of this is security stuff that makes complete sense, but it results in living in a way that is such a restricted feeling.
When this would happen on, like, it happens in other genres, but what jumps to my mind is, remember how in The Walking Dead, every once in a while they'd find a community and they'd be like, oh my God, thank God. Oh. And then they get into the community and you're just like, wait, what the fuck's going on here?
I was just thinking about Terminus the other day, and, like, that one turned a corner very, very quickly, so it's not really the same situation. But you guys, Walking Dead was just nothing but that. Nothing but, remember, like, how is this community fucked up? Like, what's the particular thing they fucking do?
Like, there was the one where they find that little town with the governor, and it looks great until it's not. And then there's Terminus, and it happened like 3 or 4 different times, or more probably after I stopped watching it. It probably just kept happening. But it was reminding me of that a little bit. And I think the reason that shows up over and over is because there is a kernel of truth.
Oh, definitely.
There. And also it really does speak to our fears, because one of the things when you start talking about upending an entire system, right, is that we don't know what the new thing is going to look like. And there's so much fear of the unknown around that, like, our worst fears are we somehow manage to get out from underneath one boot only to find ourselves under the heel of a boot we put on ourselves. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it's not shocking that there's, like, a feeling of that. But yeah, I was just like, God damn, this is all, like, I mean, I'm glad, but also, am I glad?
Yeah, the thing about it is a lot of it is so reasonable in terms of just safety precautions. And then there's things like, we're going to tattoo your schedule on the inside of your arm, that I'm
That
like,
seem unnecessarily, right, authoritarian, right?
Yeah.
Like it removes any sense of like freedom, you know, even though it would be the same thing if they just had a schedule on their door. It would, like, functionally, it would be the same, but it would hit a little bit different, you know? There's just, but, in a society like this, right, you've got to be efficient. You have to make use of every moment, of every resources. You can't waste anything, including time. So so it's probably really ingenious that they've come up with this little system here. But the look of it and the feel of it is like, how is this better?
Yeah. And like, you know, to a point, this isn't just self-imposed. This is the capital affecting the way they can operate from afar, despite having allegedly not been part of Panem, really. They still have to cope with the way the capital is going to come at them.
Yeah, the reality.
Yeah. So it's like, but it's just, it feels, and I mean, the way that chapter 3 ends is also,
what the fuck was that about?
That's
What is
also not,
that?
like, looking awesome. So, all right, let's start things off, because we haven't even gotten to 13 yet. We start in 12.
Yeah.
And Katniss has insisted that she get to come and see what's left. And it has been this, like, prolonged argument where eventually they just throw their hands up and are like, fine, just let her go. Like, maybe that'll fucking get things across, because she has not been cooperative in the way they were hoping for when they rescued her.
Not at all. And this is like them, like you said, throwing up their hands and being like, fine, if she needs to see it to understand, you know, the severity of the situation, then let her fucking see it, you know?
He says maybe that's enough for her to finally, let's see, where is it? Maybe a little tour of 12 is just what she needs to convince her we're on the same side. So just really seeing that the rage Katniss had at the end of the last book has not abated. She is still,
not at all.
She's just absolutely furious at everybody involved in this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where they have to keep her sedated most of the time.
And a part of me has a hard time understanding that. I'm going to be honest. Like, I understand it to a point, but I am somebody who is always so willing to try and see things from everybody else's point of view, probably to a fault, that I maybe sometimes will let go of too much and excuse too much. And so for me, despite like understanding her rage at being used the way that she was, about being lied to and sort of treated like a naive child about a theory that it turns out they were actually working toward and embracing, I still can't help but feel like, yeah, but you are here now. It worked. Yeah. And like 12 got flattened, but that's not their fault. 12 was going to get flattened based on what you decided to do, which was like maybe going to happen whether or not they had set up this particular like rescue escape plan, you know?
I think that, because, you know, me and you are very similar in certain ways, and we have that in common, a sort of like intense desire to sort of like not only be a mediator, you know, and try to see all sides, and like just generally not enjoying conflict unless it's a very specific type of conflict.
Yeah.
What I was telling myself as I was reading and being a little like put out by her I almost want to say her attitude, but that doesn't, that's way more small than I mean, but that's just the word I'm going with for the moment. But like her, like there was a part of me that was like, girl, you need to be a little bit more grateful. They like saved you. But then I stopped because again, like seeing from all sides, and I was trying to imagine if I'm Katniss, which is impossible to even imagine myself in a situation like this, it's so extreme and so, like, you know, out of this world. And I had to do the things she had to do. I have had to kill people. You know, I've had my life threatened multiple times in a myriad of ways. I've been this pawn of the Capitol. I've had the most powerful man in Panem come into my home and threaten me to my face, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's my ass that's been on the line. You know, I've been the one that's in the arena while you all are making your fancy plans without my knowledge. You know, I was the one that was in it. How dare you? And that brought me closer to understanding this intense rage she has.
Yeah.
I get it. I do. I get it. And the way that they're talking to her in these first three chapters really, this sort of putting up with her antics, air quotes, right? Indulging her, which is what it feels like. They're indulging her, with letting her, like, be angry, you know, shooting her up with meds when she gets too out of control. Just like everybody is waiting for her to get over herself so that they can be about the business of revolution, right? Like she's holding up the show. She's the show.
She is indeed.
She's the show. And there's a real sense of everyone sort of talking at her and about her and around her, but not a lot of talking to or with her.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not a space any of us like to be in. I don't particularly like when I feel like that's what's happening to me, and I can't imagine that anybody would disagree. You know, that feeling of, like, all these people are making choices for me and you know, decisions on my behalf, and do I not get a fucking say? And sometimes, like, the only power you have is the power to be difficult and slow other people's shit down. You know?
Yeah.
And that's really all she has at this point, is the power to be like, y'all can't do really anything until I'm ready to say we're gonna start. But yeah, even, like, taking her to 12, which I guess that there's a real concern that it's not safe and it's also out of the way, you know, and it's not probably logical to do this. But how do you not? Right? How have you not already planned for this? This should have been part of the plan, you know?
Yeah.
She left her home and her family, went to the fucking games. You scooped her out of the arena. She has no idea. And of course she wants to see with her own eyes what happened. You know, like, how do you not account for that? How is this a surprise that she's insisting that you do this? Because no one stopped to think about what she might want or what she might need, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. By the time I got through it, I was as angry as she was.
That's the thing that I think is sort of interesting, is that everything does revolve around her, and yet they seem genuinely surprised that she's an actual person. She has become such a tool and a symbol in their head that they just didn't predict that she would have human reactions to things. And she starts, like, in the second chapter, I think she describes, like, going and hiding in closets and things to sleep. She's got PTSD. Clearly that's what's going on. And it's just like, oh, here she goes again. Like, she's being just like a drama queen or something.
Like, she's just being a petulant child for no reason, right? She's slowing up. She's gumming up the works is what she's doing. She's gumming up the works. And they seem low-key annoyed. Like, why can't you just get your shit together and be what we need you to be, like, on day one? Ma'am. I beg your pardon? I was just in the fucking Thunderdome.
Exactly.
Can I get a minute? You know?
And not only did you save me, but you let PETA get captured, which the anger about that, when that was her sole purpose while she was in the arena, was to get him out, and then that seemingly just got tossed aside.
Like, no big deal. No big deal. I love that we find out a little bit later that maybe it's in chapter 2 or maybe it's later than that in 3. But at some point, she makes a mention of Finnick and that he's also like having a hard time.
Yeah.
But she doesn't spend a lot of time with him, so we don't really get, to see exactly what's going on with him. But there's like a throwaway line of something about how he spends most of his time crying or something.
Yeah.
But because he is not, the Mockingjay, there doesn't, at least from what I can tell so far, there doesn't seem to be the same pressure on Finnick that there is on her to like get her shit together.
Definitely would agree with that.
Yeah. So they take her down to 12, and y'all, it's gone. It's all gone, like except the Victor's village.
Yeah, she theorizes that's been left alone so that if people are traveling and come here, like, government officials or press or something, they will have somewhere to stay that isn't completely flattened. But
that is so, like, I mean, again, just like, whew, again, like they would bomb a fully populated city indiscriminately like this, and kill everyone who lives there with no warning, no opportunity to escape, it seems like, except for like a handful of people. It is, I would say, unimaginable, except we don't really have to imagine it.
Yeah.
We can just fucking watch it in real time if we're inclined. But her going back, and then she, does she go back to where her house was?
yeah, she does eventually. And the whole, so at first she is just standing there like staring, and she has sort of frozen, apparently not realizing how bad it is going to be until she sees it. And there's a mention about how when she landed in the meadow, she walked into a rock, but realized really quickly that it was somebody's skull. And as she's walking through, people's bodies rotting are all over the place. Yeah. Mostly gone because there's been so many scavengers, but there's still enough left that there's like a stench in the air.
Yeah. She's thinking to herself as she walks by the bodies, I killed you, and I killed you, and I killed you. And this girl is 17.
Yeah.
Like continuing to remind myself over and over that this is a child. And as she's walking, she hears President Snow, you provided a spark that left unintended, make road to an inferno that destroys Panem. And she's just like, it turns out he wasn't exaggerating, was he?
The part with, so she's talking about for a moment the way that he was able to save some people. It was Gale who thought of the meadow, one of the few places not filled with old wooden homes embedded with coal dust. He herded those he could in its direction, including my mother and Prim. He formed the team that pulled down the fence, now just a harmless chain link barrier with the electricity off, and led the people into the woods. He took them to the only place he could think of, the lake my father had shown me as a child, and it was from there they watched the distant flames eat up everything they knew in the world. And
now, this is wild to me because she had never shared this spot with Gale until this last book.
Yeah.
Right? It just finally broke down and shared it with him the one time, and that's where he kissed her, right?
Oh, I think he kissed her outside, like, once they were back in the but I may be wrong. It doesn't really matter.
I can't remember, but right. But she only took him there the one time.
Yeah.
And that ends up being their, like, salvation. That's their refuge. That's where they go to be safe from this destruction. And, like, I just kept thinking, God, what if she hadn't broke down and taken him there that day? He would not have known. Like, where would they have gone?
Yeah.
Like, just how fortuitous it was that she has that day where she finally decides she wants to share this very sacred space for her. She decides she wants to share it with Gale. And that ends up being their salvation. Just like, I know it's not lucky because it's a book and it was written to be that way, but also, like, how lucky is that?
Especially, like, it is a major thing for her to share because she's so... inside her own head. And I love that she finally decides to like be vulnerable and share it with him, and it winds up making such a big difference.
Yep. Like that was the place that she had with her father. It was so special to her, and it just ends up being like saving everyone. Not everyone, but you know what I mean. Saving the people that were able to be saved.
Yeah.
And because she has a moment where she finally is vulnerable enough to share that with someone else. That feels like a real important lesson.
Mm-hmm. It should be. By dawn, the bombers were gone, the fires dying, the final stragglers rounded up. My mother and Prim had set up a medical area for the injured and were attempting to treat them with whatever they could glean from the woods. Gale had 2 sets of bows and arrows, 1 hunting knife, 1 fishing net, and over 800 terrified people to feed. With the help of those who were able-bodied, they managed for 3 days, and that's when the hovercraft unexpectedly arrived to evacuate them to District 13. So that's the details that we were looking for at the end of the last book about how many people managed to get out and how did he pull it off and how long did it take before they were picked up.
Yeah, and District 13 coming to get them, because there was a line in the last book where she's just like, how come they've never tried to help anybody before? Mm-hmm. And we find out after they've been here that, they have very, very limited resources in 13.
Yeah.
But they go to 12. And this is a question. Do they go to, and this might have been answered. You have to forgive me. My brain is like Swiss cheese even more than normal. But they go and rescue the people from 12 because of her connection to 12? Or do they do it out of their own sort of altruism? No. I'm sorry. I just remembered.
Go ahead.
There's a conversation about maybe they don't have enough people in 13 because they're not really having children.
Yeah. This is because she mentions that like they're greeted so eagerly and given so much that people feel good about 13. But then a man later tells her they need me. They need us all. A while back, there was some sort of pox epidemic that killed a bunch of them and left a lot more infertile. New breeding stock, that's how they see us.
That's right.
Back in 10, he'd worked on one of the beef ranches, maintaining the genetic diversity of the herd with the implantation of long-frozen cow embryos. He's very likely right about 13 because there don't seem to be nearly enough kids around. But so what? We're not being kept in pens. We're being trained for work. The children are being educated. Those over 14 have been given entry-level ranks in the military and are dressed respectfully as soldier. Every single refugee was granted automatic citizenship by the authorities of 13. Still, I hate them. But, of course, I hate almost everybody now. Myself more than anyone. So, yeah, she is continuing to walk around here, finds like where PETA's house had been and the bakery and stuff. Nothing remains, and none of his family made it out. And she's just thinking about how like if they had rescued him, there'd have been no family for him.
I wonder why his family didn't make it out. I wonder if they were just a direct hit or if they didn't want to leave or...
It seems like... here it is. Fewer than a dozen of what passed for District 12's well-to-do escaped the fire. So it seems like they bombed an area where more of the affluent people lived. And it was the outskirts where the poor were that had the opportunity to flee. Where the people who lived sort of near the center of things weren't able to get out in time.
Oh, man.
So... she's having a hard time. She stumbles across like the gallows and stuff and is just starting to have like short of breath, just a bit of a panic reaction. And she's just like finally going, why did I come back here? Why am I here? What did I think this was going to do? And let's see, people keep talking at me. Talking. Plutarch Heavensby, his calculating assistant Fulvia Cardew, a mishmash of district leaders, military officials, but not Alma Coin, the president of 13, who just watches. She's 50 or so, with gray hair that falls in an unbroken sheet to her shoulders. I'm somewhat fascinated by her hair since it's so uniform, so without a flaw, a wisp, even a split end. Her eyes are gray, but not like those of people from the seam. They're very pale, as if almost all the color has been sucked out of them. The color of slush that you wish would melt away. What they want is for me to truly take on the role they designed for me. And so we get a little bit of like, you know, they're going to be using her in a similar way as the Capitol would, just towards a different end.
Yep, they have a whole prep team that's going to make her over and dress her and write her speeches and, you know, control what she looks like and all her appearances. It's the same shit, just for like a different puppeteer. But, you know, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like I want this revolution, right? Like I want the Capitol to fall, but this is where I guess because we're all wishy-washy, or I'm wishy-washy, I don't know, I don't want to speak for everybody, where it's like you want that to happen, but I don't want this to be what replaces it. You know, this doesn't feel, even though it's for air quotes a good cause, it doesn't feel any more fair to her than what the Capitol was doing.
Yeah.
It feels like the same shit a little bit, and that bums me out because that's not what I wanted it to feel like once she like got hooked up with the fucking rebellion. I wanted it to, I don't know, I just wanted it to feel like freedom was, and this doesn't feel like freedom at all.
It sure doesn't. Yeah, and she overhears Coin at one point after she like gets up and leaves during a meeting because she just can't focus. And Coin says, I told you we should have rescued the boy first. Basically, like, we let the wrong one get tortured.
Yeah,
like,
sure enough, yep. We saved the wrong one, you know. That's an awful thing to hear somebody saying. She agrees with it. She's just like, yeah, he would have been what you needed. He would have been so much better. He would have been an excellent mouthpiece. And so this is when we find out that they got Beatty, which we knew, actually we don't find out, but this is her reflecting on like who did they get out of the arena.
Yeah.
So she's like, they got me who won't cooperate, they got Beatty and Finnick. And those are the three people that they pulled out, and she's got varying opinions on what the value of each would be. Beatty is incredibly valuable. We find out that as soon as he gets slightly recovered, they put him to work.
Yes. As soon as he can sit upright, literally, he's wheeled in. Despite serious reservations, I had to forgive Finnick for his role in the conspiracy that landed me here. He, at least, has some idea of what I'm going through. And it takes too much energy to stay angry with someone who cries so much.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. He can barely stay awake for more than 5 minutes. And even when he's awake, you have to say everything to him 3 or 4 times to get it through. They think he's suffering from the shock in the arena. And she's like, but I know it's more complicated than that.
So this is when she goes to the place where they used to live. And who does she come across?
Oh my God, you guys.
The Buttercup, the cat.
Of course.
I squat down and extend a hand. Come here, boy. Not likely. He's angry at his abandonment. Besides, I'm not offering food. And my ability to provide scraps has always been my main redeeming quality. For a while, when we used to meet up at the old house because we both disliked this new one, we seemed to be bonding a little. That's clearly over. And when she says want to see Prim, that's the only thing that like sort of gets him coming towards her. And she just grabs him and stuffs him in her game bag and is like, ha Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say I was really, really happy that we get Buttercup.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know it was something that I was like looking for until we get it, and I was like, oh, thank God. I feel bad for the goat. The goat did not make it.
Yeah, the goat. Who knows? Maybe the goat made it. Maybe it's just living its best life out in the woods somewhere.
That's true. That's true.
So she's at like the newer house, and she goes up to her room and finds her dad's hunting jacket, which is still there. And it's sort of comforting for a moment. But then all of a sudden, she starts to have this reaction, and she's like, why am I freaking out? What is it? And she begins to realize that she smells something. And she goes over to her dresser, and there is a white rose left on her dresser, completely perfect and untouched and like
fresh.
Yeah.
There's a vase of flowers, and all of them are dried, but this one is fresh. Like somebody is coming and making sure that there's a fresh one there.
Yep.
For whenever, you know what I mean? Which is really creepy in and of itself. It's just fucking creepy. But she knows immediately this is from President Snow, and this is a signal to her. And the smell is so bad, it starts to make her gag.
Yeah. And she doesn't tell anybody about this. She's worried that, like, either they're going to drug her up again because she's flipping out, or they're just not going to understand why it's so significant, and she's going to have to sit there watching them, like, not getting it. And she says, it speaks of unfinished business. It whispers, I can find you. I can reach you. Perhaps I am watching you now.
Yeah.
So that's the end of chapter 1.
I also love that she forgets that Buttercup is in that bag. And she's just like dragging it and bouncing it all on the ground.
I forgot about that. That is really funny. Poor Buttercup. He puts up with so many indignities.
He really does.
So, chapter 2, she is, like, at this point, a little paranoid because it feels like, well, he must have known I was coming somehow to leave this and it still be so fresh. So he's, like, worried. She's worried that there's going to be a sign that they're being followed, something going on. And eventually it's clear that's not what's happening. And I just love fucking Buttercup just being like in the bag yowling, and Gale being like, oh, that's why you wanted to go back. And she's like, oh yeah, definitely.
Buttercup is with the indignities that he's suffering. His yowling is appropriate. This is no way to treat a cat. No way. I mean, sure, she just saved his life, but really, is that enough?
Not for him. No. The only thing would be saving him and then killing herself. So let's see. She mentions a mere week's journey on foot. Bonnie and Twill, the District 8 refugees who I encountered in the woods last winter, weren't so far from their destination after all. They apparently didn't make it, though. When I asked about them in 13, no one seemed to know who I was talking about. Died in the woods, I guess. There is something so depressing.
Yeah,
about these
I'm
two
curious
not
if
having
that's like I had a moment of just being like, that seems, I don't know, like, I want to say that something about that just doesn't feel right, but there's no reason to lie about whether they made it or not. So that just seems like a stupid thing to lie about, especially if District 13 is so desperate for bodies.
Yeah.
So I think I was just really disappointed that it didn't make it, and I wanted it to be like something else. I wanted it to be like, nope, you're not telling the truth here. You know, because I like, it's so that they got that close and didn't make it is so devastating that I almost would rather there be some sort of subterfuge happening, some sort of, oh, they made it, but they're not allowed in Gen Pop because XYZ that I don't know yet. You know what I mean? Or something. But I think it's just a terrible thing that's happened, and that's all it's going to be, that they tried so hard and made it so far and got so close, but just didn't get close enough. And sometimes that's just how that shit happens. And it's just meant to be really, really devastating, you know?
Because one of them, she had like a broken ankle or something. So the odds were against them to begin with. So from the air, 13 looks about as cheerful as 12, which that got me for some reason. The rubble isn't smoking the way the Capitol shows it on television, but there's next to no life above ground. In the 75 years since the Dark Days, when 13 was said to have been obliterated in the war between the capital and the districts, almost all new construction has been beneath the Earth's surface. So yeah, they live underground. It's like a bargain they struck, basically. Like, you leave us alone and we'll pretend we're dead. And
yeah, they had like a pretty significant underground facility based on the type of work that they did.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's where they were at first, but they have since expanded it, you know, significantly to where the whole population exists underground. But the beginning must have been, my God, the beginning must have been very ugly.
Yeah, I have to imagine. It was grim. And so, yeah, they live entirely underground, and they do come up to the sun on, like, scheduled timing for their, you know, exercise and vitamin D and whatever. But it's definitely really, really structured. The whole thing with, like, the tattooed schedules.
Yeah. And if you miss your schedules outside time, that's just it till the next time. There's no, like, do-overs.
At first, when I was so ill in the hospital, I could forego being imprinted. But once I moved into compartment 307 with my mother and sister, I was expected to get with the program. Except for showing up for meals, though, I pretty much ignore the words on my arm. I just go back to our compartment or wander around 13 or fall asleep somewhere hidden. An abandoned air duct behind the water pipes in the laundry. There's a closet in the education center that's great because no one ever seems to need school supplies. They're so frugal with things here. Waste is practically a criminal activity. Fortunately, the people of 12 have never been wasteful. But once I saw Fulvia Cardew crumple up a sheet of paper with just a couple of words written on it, and you would have thought she'd murdered someone from the look she got. Her face turned tomato red, making the silver flowers inlaid in her plump cheeks even more noticeable. The very portrait of excess. One of my few pleasures in 13 is watching the handful of pampered capital, quote, rebels squirming as they try to fit in.
Yeah.
And this would be me. This whole thing is so, like, it's just, you know, picturing myself in these sorts of situations is very humbling because I mean, I waste so much. We all do. We're trained to a point to do it this way. Especially when you're poor, a lot of the time it's cheaper to just, like, get disposable things. That's the way the world's been built now.
You don't have enough money to buy the thing that's going to actually last you, so you got to buy the cheap thing 4 times.
Yep. Because
you never have enough money up front to get the good thing one time. And it just rinse and repeat.
So, she says, what am I going to tell my family? And he's like, I don't think they're really going to ask anything. Like, we were there. We saw how it happened.
We don't really have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But everybody is worried about how she's going to deal with what she sees. They're more concerned about how you're handling it, he says. And then he's like I am, and touches her face gently.
So she gets to the room, and I love this. My mother and sister are home for 1800 reflection, an hour of downtime before dinner. I see the concern on their faces as they try to gauge my emotional state. Before anyone can ask anything, I empty my game bag, and it becomes 1800 cat adoration. As it should.
Yeah. I love this. Prim just sits on the floor weeping and rocking that awful Buttercup. The animosity she has for Buttercup is so fucking real.
And Buttercup is literally, like, purring for Prim and then turning and stopping purring just to hiss at Katniss and then turning back to Prim to start purring again. I just love it so much.
Prim has the blue ribbon saved, or did Katniss bring it? I'm not sure.
I think Prim has it.
And either way, she, is tying it around Buttercup's neck, and she just says, he gives me a particularly smug look when she tries to tie the ribbon around his neck. Like, he's like, yeah, see, bitch?
Oh, my God.
I just love this sassy-ass cat. He's so, like, cranky.
And I forgot she had grabbed the wedding photo for her mother, which is really sweet.
The wedding photo and the book of medicine plants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because there's that great line where she finds the book in the house and she opens it and opens to a page that Peeta has drawn on.
I forgot
And
to mention that.
it's just like a stab in her heart, and she has to close the book really fast. Like, she can't even look at it.
So they're summoned to command. And she's like hesitant to even go fully into the room, and is hoping that maybe if she has made a show of showing up at all, that she could just dip and then they won't care or notice. But then Plutarch catches her eye and like gestures her in really urgently. Yeah. And she's like, okay. And they have the TV on, basically.
Yeah, they're all staring around the screen, and it's a Capitol broadcast. They have like a feed into it, and she's like not super excited about seeing what's on the screen because it's always playing and it's always the same shit. It's always the same propaganda, the bombings, President Snow, warning rebels and promising victory, same shit every day. She's not into it. And then she hears the voice of who's on it, and it's fucking Flickerman. And she's just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And that catches her. And then it turns out he's about to interview somebody, and the camera pulls, and his guest is fucking Peeta. And you guys, I said it. They're going to make him like a fucking mouthpiece.
You did indeed.
Because what else could they do with him if they weren't going to just kill him outright? And yeah, they got it, but he's doing this thing, right, where he's not like he's visibly hostile, He's not just there pretending to praise the Capitol and like in that way, but I think the main thing he does that pisses all the rebels off is he says they should have a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping ahead a little bit because that's sort of towards the end of what he says, but that is like basically he's a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I was shocked that they say he's a traitor. I really wanted to be like, what do you think he's gonna do? Like, what the fuck are you?
What did you think he was about to say?
Yeah.
He was going to scream death to the Capitol on Caesar Flickerman's show, and then what was going to happen?
Exactly. And for my part, as much as like, there should be a ceasefire is bullshit on the surface of it, I also feel like he's doing the best kind of tap dancing he can get away with. Mm-hmm. And I was really taken aback at how mad they are at him, because to me this is just what I was expecting. Like, I just was baffled, frankly, at the fact that they seemed to think he was gonna, like, I don't know what, just yell in their faces and allow himself to be like assassinated on TV. Like, what did you want from him? What were you hoping for? I don't get it.
And the thing, and when they bring Peeta out, like, he looks really good. Like, she remarks, like, he looks healthy. Mm-hmm. He's robust even. And so they don't bring him out looking all bedraggled and, like, tortured and, like, obviously, beat up.
What is going on over there?
Right? Somebody's, like, brakes or something. I don't know about cars, but somebody needs help.
That sounded crazy. Anyway, sorry.
And it went on for a while, right?
I only just heard it, so like,
no, it felt like it was in the background. Like, I heard it in the background for a while. Like, it was just on, like, this drone that wasn't ending.
Christ, there's something spooky about it. Did not like that.
But yeah, so they have Peeta, and he comes out and he's looking all good and healthy. Like, if they had him looking like they were treating him poorly, that would have been, I think, something that got the rebellion, like, more energized,
Right.
So they got to make sure that he comes out clearly being well cared for, so they can't rally around Pete, And then he comes out and he's talking to Caesar, and Caesar is just like, I bet you didn't think you'd see me again. And Peter says another thing about Caesar says, Peter says, I bet you thought you were done with me. And Caesar's like, I did. Who thought we'd ever see you again? And then Peter says, well, it wasn't a part of my plan, that's for sure. And Katniss is like, yeah, other people did have plans. Has Peter guessed this? How much does he know? Because there's no way for her to know for real how much Peter has been able to put together, what he's being told in the Capitol. But he spends this interview kind of making it seem like Katniss and him, well, it's true, they were not part of any plan. And he keeps saying that adamantly. We didn't know anything about any of this shit. We had no idea about the rebels. And Katniss has basically just been taken prisoner. You know, she wasn't in league with them. They came and took her. Almost to give her some sort of plausible deniability, you know? So that she can kind of get out of this with her life. Because this boy is just, his whole mission is keep her alive. And
it's like, it takes a long time for her to understand that's what's going on. Gail has to sort of explain.
Somebody has to tell her
later.
Yeah.
He describes the arena, and he does it so well that she's just like, again, starting to sort of hyperventilate. And he says, if you win, it's very costly. And Caesar says it costs your life. And he says, oh no, it costs a lot more than your life. To murder innocent people, it costs everything you are. So you hold on to your wish. And that last night, yes, my wish was to save Katniss. But even without knowing about the rebels, it didn't feel right. Everything was too complicated. I found myself regretting I hadn't run off with her earlier in the day as she had suggested, but there was no getting out of it at that point. Too busy playing allies with the others. I should never have let them separate us. That's when I lost her. And, he just sort of goes off on this. And Caesar says, because he's like, the force field blew out. And Caesar's like, Katniss blew it out. You saw her do it. And Peter's like, she didn't know what she was doing, though. Like, you can watch her and realize she picked up that knife not knowing what he was planning and eventually decides to do a thing. And Caesar's like, well, it looks suspicious, like she was part of it. And Caesar gets in his face.
Oh, Peter, yeah, she's
Peter.
He's all up in his grill. You think it was part of her plan for Joanna to nearly kill her, for that shock to paralyze her, to trigger the bombing? He's yelling. She didn't know. Neither of us knew anything except that we were trying to keep each other alive. And Caesar's like, okay. I believe you. It's the way she's describing it, though. She's like, Peter withdraws from Caesar, pulling back his hands, running them through his hair, mussing his carefully styled blonde curls. He slumps back in his chair, distraught. And she's describing it almost like it's a performance.
Do you think that it's fake?
I think that he's being 100% sincere. I think he's being very careful. So it's a performance in the sense that he knows exactly what it is he's trying to get across, and that he has to be kind of careful in how he does it. He also it's a performance in the sense that Peter knows how to be on TV in these interviews. He knows how to give what he wants to give, right? But I do think I don't think that takes away from sincerity. I think he's with a purpose, Yeah. He's very intentional about what he's saying, how he's saying it, how he's reacting. So performance, but not in a way that implies a lack of sincerity. But just, he's not just up here saying anything. He's not, even when he seems like he's out of control and he's in Caesar's face, no guards come out.
That's true. Nobody comes out trying to restrain him or anything. You
know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. And And he says that he thinks he should never have trusted Haymitch. And we get a little bit of like info about how he is having to be sober because they don't do alcohol here.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's going through it. And Katniss is just like, wow, must suck. Too bad you suck. Don't care. She's just like not
She's like,
sympathetic
I
at
hope
all.
he's watching this so he can know that Peter says, fuck you too.
I want everyone watching, whether you're on the Capitol or Rebel side, to stop for just a moment and think what this war could mean for human beings. We almost went extinct fighting one another before. Now our numbers are even fewer, our conditions more tenuous. Is this really what we want to do? Kill ourselves off completely in the hopes that some decent species will inherit the smoking remains of the earth? I'm not sure I'm following. We can't fight one another, Caesar, Peeta explains. There won't be enough of us left to keep going. If everybody doesn't lay down their weapons, and I mean as in very soon, it's all over anyway. So you're calling for a ceasefire? Yes, I'm calling for a ceasefire, says Peeta tiredly. Now, why don't we ask the guards to take me back to my quarters so I can build another 100 card houses? And that's the end of that.
Yeah, I'm so surprised they let him even get away with that last little line. Like, that feels like, you know, like maybe he didn't mean to say that.
I mean, I don't think anybody is surprised. I don't think anybody would have expected him to be like having the run of the place.
Yeah, that's true. But so yeah, Caesar's just like, all right, well, I guess that's it for tonight.
And she can hear everybody saying like, traitor, liar, enemy, and starts to leave. And Coin tries to stop her. It says, "You have not been dismissed, Soldier Everdeen." A guard attempts to physically stop her, and she does not react well to being touched and just sprints away.
Yeah, she can hear like a scuffle behind her, but she doesn't even stop to look to see what's going on. Her mind is just like, where can I go? Where's safe? Where's safe? And she ends up in her closet. And then, yeah, she's just triggered so hard, and she's trying to like calm herself through a very obvious panic attack, or even worse than a panic attack. But after a while, it's Gale, and he's got a little bit of a nosebleed. He's a little banged up. And she's just like, what happened to you? And he's like, oh, I got in the way. Because when the guy tried to stop her, whose name is Boggs, Gale put his body in between them and ended up in a little bit of a scuffle.
Yeah.
And he... they take his little communicuff from him as like punishment for that.
It's like, I love the fact that they both laugh hysterically over like the severity. Oh no, not the cuff. Please, anything but that. It's just really funny.
He's like, yeah, I think it was quite a demotion. He's like I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I think this is supposed to really hit hard. Meanwhile, Gale has been like publicly whipped.
Right. She says, I like to think 12 wouldn't have abandoned the rest of the rebels back in the dark days. We might have, if it was that, surrender or start a nuclear war. In a way, it's remarkable they survived at all. And she's then like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit. They have really managed to like make it. And a pox epidemic has like left them in a weakened position, but they were doing all right. And she says maybe they are militaristic, overly programmed, and somewhat lacking in a sense of humor. They're here and willing to take on the Capitol. Still, it took them long enough to show up.
I mean, even after all that in her brain of talking about, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit, this is what she says out loud. Still took him long enough to show up. And then, yeah, we have Gale talking about, like, how complicated it was for them to get this plan and how long it would have taken, and that they had to build up a rebel base inside the Capitol, get some sort of underground organization. They needed a lot of time to get this going. And then he says, and they needed you.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, they needed Peeta too, but they seem like they forgot that part. And this is when Gale is like, all right, I gotta keep it real with you for a second. What Peeta just did, it could have done a lot of damage.
Yeah.
A lot of rebels are going to dismiss what he said because they're going to understand that he is under, it's being coerced, right? He's not free to say whatever is on his mind. But there are going to be a lot of districts where the resistance is not as strong. The foundation isn't as strong. And a ceasefire might look good because it'll put an end to, like, the current troubles. Mm-hmm. But we know long term, this is me now, not Gale. But long term, it's going to end up being the same shit. But in the right now, a ceasefire might look like a way out of this horrendous situation. And she says, why do you think he said it? And she doesn't want the answer to this, but she has to ask it.
She doesn't. It's true.
And this is when he's like, could have been torture. Maybe they really talked him into it. Most likely, he's made a deal to protect you. Because of course he has.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they're going to be dangling over his head, right? Like, he's willing. Peeta is not going to do this to save his own life. But he will definitely do this if there's a chance that he can save Katniss's life. And that's all they have to promise is that, okay, we won't kill her. And he'll just do whatever he thinks he has to do to save her.
And then she's like, oh, God, so we're still in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
the games are still on.
If the Capitol wins, who knows? Maybe we'll both be allowed to live if I play it right, to watch the games go on. Images flash through my mind. The spear piercing Rue's body in the arena. Gale hanging senseless from the whipping post. The corpse-littered wasteland of my home. And for what? For what? As my blood turns hot, I remember other things. My first glimpse of an uprising in District 8. The victors locked hand in hand the night before the quarter quell. And how it was no accident, my shooting that arrow into the force field in the arena. How badly I wanted it to lodge deep in the heart of my enemy. I spring up, upsetting a box of 100 pencils, sending them scattering around the floor. What is it? Gale asks. There can't be a ceasefire. I lean down, fumbling as I shove the sticks of dark gray graphite back into the box. We can't go back. I know. Gale sweeps up a handful of pencils and taps them on the floor into perfect alignment. Whatever reason Peeta had for saying those things, he's wrong. I know. Give it here. You're breaking them to bits. He doesn't know what they did to 12. If he could have seen what was on the ground. Katniss, I'm not arguing. If I could hit a button and kill every living soul working for the Capitol, I would do it without hesitation. The question is, what are you going to do? It turns out the question that's been eating away at me only ever had one possible answer, but it took Peeta's ploy for me to recognize it. And she says, I'm going to be the Mockingjay.
Yeah. So she's finally made a decision. She's going to lean into it.
So,
yeah.
Chapter 3. Buttercup is here. I just can't get enough of this fucking cat. It's just the little bit of humor that we need in here, So she it has the pearls still that Peeta had given her, and she holds on to this as a sort of like talisman, and has been having trouble sleeping. And Prim is awake and can tell she's agitated and is asking what's wrong. This.
She thinks she's being all quiet and stealthy in this room. She's creeping around, because she's got a lot of things, actually. They let her keep her Mockingjay pin. She still has Peeta's token, the locker, and she has the parachute with the spile and the pearl. They took her bow and arrow, though, because they have a whole thing about not having weapons in 13.
Right.
But they let her keep the rest of her little talismans. And she's creeping around the room trying to be all quiet. And finally gets the pearl, and she's sitting in the bed, rubbing it back and forth against her lips, and Prim whispers to her what's wrong. And Katniss does the thing she does. You know, I'm not telling you, it's too heavy, I have to protect you. And Prim says, after realizing how cold she is and wrapping a blanket around Katniss, she says, you know, you can tell me. I am good at keeping secrets, even from Mother. And this moment catches Katniss so off guard because she has to look at her little sister really as who she is now for the first time in a while. Yeah. She hasn't been seeing Prim, right? She's been seeing the Prim she left behind the very first time she got called to the games. That little girl is not the same person. You know, she has also seen horrible things. She watched her home get bombed into dust.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
This is not the same little girl. And she says time and tragedy have forced her to grow too quickly into a young woman who stitches bleeding wounds and knows our mother can hear only so much. Like, wow. Wow, wow, wow,
right.
wow, wow. Yeah. Oof. So she tells Prim that tomorrow I'm going to agree to be the Mockingjay. And here comes Prim with the fucking questions that need answers.
I love so much how on top of everything Prim is in this conversation. Because you want to or because you feel forced into it. And she's like, well, both, but yeah, I want to. And she's like, the thing is that I'm worried that they're going to execute Peeta. Like, if we win, I'm killing him. And Prim's like, girl, you are like the whole thing.
Right?
She's
like, how do you not
like keep him if you make that part of the deal here? I just adore this so much that like Katniss had not even considered that she could have stipulations and stuff in place.
She's like, you mean I could demand they give him immunity and they'd have to agree to it? And Prim is like, girl, I think you could demand almost anything and they'd have to agree to it. But the question is, how do you know they'll keep their word? Prim is on it. Mm-hmm. She is on it. Because, of course, they can promise you anything and then do whatever the fuck they want later. And Katniss is remembering all of the fucking ways Haymitch has lied to her and to Peeta to get them to do what he wanted them to do.
I really want to point out the fact that they have been taken in by this group of people and that these folks have, like, saved them is not clouding Prim's view of them at all. Mm-hmm. She is asking, how do you know they'll keep their word in what could be seen as really a cynical way? Like, a lot of people wouldn't even consider these folks capable of breaking their word. And it really speaks to the, like, kind of shit she's seen. That she's immediately like, you got to find a way to ensure that they can't wiggle out of it, because that's what people are, you know, just out 100%, here doing. 100%.
Because that's what people do. Yep. That is what people are out here doing. 100%. And the fact that she is a little girl and she understands that already at her young age is just a testament to what she has seen, you know. Because a little kid is not supposed to be thinking in that way. And she gets past that. She's like, you know what you need to do is you need to make them promise that shit in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah. I love this so much. It will have to be public, I say. I'll make Coin announce it in front of the entire population of 13. Prim smiles. Oh, that's good. It's not a guarantee, but it will be much harder for them to back out of their promise.
Yeah. Buttercup gives a flick of his tail that I take as agreement. And then this line really got me. I feel the kind of relief that follows an actual solution, because that is real, for real deal, real shit. When you are wrestling with something, you know, and then you finally get to an answer and that sort of like release. Oh, man, it is the best.
So she is able to fall asleep finally. She gets up, has breakfast, and the food is very tasteless. There's like very strict regulation on how much everybody gets, and it's tailored according to their body types and the jobs that they're doing, which is fascinating to me.
It is like the level of efficiency here that is almost inhuman.
Yeah.
Like it is, and inhuman, I mean like it, I don't mean alien, but I just mean like it just has sapped all the humanity out of everyday living, you know, like all the joy and the beauty and the things that exist just for the sake of them existing cannot be a thing in this world because they simply do not have the resources for it, you know?
Yeah.
There's no color, there's no beauty, there's no art, you know, there doesn't seem to be any music, there doesn't seem to be anything except the essentials.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, you know, not for nothing, but like the exact inverse of the excess of the capital, you know, and it's just another extreme. Now, it's not their fault that it's an extreme, like their circumstances are just what they are, but it is not ideal, you know. I don't want to unmake the capital and that excess just so that we could all live like this. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing is like you've got to hope that there will be room for more. And I assume there will be, but like, why do I assume that? Like, it's just because that's what I think austerity is for, is working toward another thing. But maybe we should establish that we're working towards more, that we all agree that these things are important enough that eventually we do need to begin to incorporate them into our lives, because frankly, I don't know if they actually feel that way or not.
It doesn't really seem like it.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing too where I bet at the beginning, because it's been 75 years since 75 years at least since the first games. So that's, you know, approximately about the time that the war ended, right?
Right.
So they've had 75 years and they've developed this society, but I bet at the beginning they thought they would make their way back to a more balanced way of living. And then the kind of thing that happens, you know, once you set up a system and you think, okay, this is just going to be temporary. And then it just goes on generation after generation, and you just end up like doubling down and tripling down.
Right.
And the things that you thought you were going to make your way back to, you never do, because you're just redoing the shit you did for survival over and over and over again, and just perfecting your survival, but never investing in actually living, if that makes any sense.
Yep, exactly. So I love that Gale, like, she gives him this wistful look at his turnips, and she immediately tries to cover it up before he gives her some, and she's just like, God, you really shouldn't do that. But it's too late. She's eaten it all. She's like, yeah, I know, I'm not really like looking like I mean what I say. You really shouldn't, though, because probably it's illegal. Something.
Yeah. I'm sure that this is 100% against the rules. And she does say, though, like, for, you know, not for nothing, the people, especially the children from 12, are already looking better, looking healthier, are gaining weight. So, again, the needs are being met, right? But is that all? Like, is that everything?
I mean,
you know,
it's more than they had before.
You know, and
in some ways,
seems,
but
right, it really is, like, because they were starving before. You know, there was nothing. They were literally starving in 12, and now they're getting 3 meals a day, and their nutritional needs are being met. She says they have nutrition down to a science. I think you read that part. So this is like way better than it was, and yet I'm over here like, this is not enough. Maybe I'm just ungrateful. Maybe I'm just not built for revolution.
Listen, the two of us, you know, we both are we understand at this point, like, the bare necessities isn't enough to really sustain you. But I think that when they've gone so long without the bare necessities, it feels like luxury to them, and that's hard for us to
Absolutely.
wrap our heads around.
I think that's 100% correct. Yeah. That thing too about the food, like him sneaking her the food, like I thought for sure that they were going to get yelled at for that, like somebody was going to say something. And they might be getting away with it only because it's her.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
Somebody else gets caught doing that, they probably do get a little talking to. Oh, she says here too, they don't let you take food back to your room, which is a weird. I remember that being a thing when I was in college. There was like you used to have to sneak food out of the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a weird thing, right?
Especially considering what the fuck we're paying for college.
What the fuck we're paying for, and for the food. Like I had to get I wasn't in school very long. I didn't live on campus, but I had like one of those cards, for the cafeteria. And that shit was expensive. And I remember kids like trying to sneak out Jell-O and pudding in their hoodies and shit like that. Like, what the fuck is that? Is that why is that a thing?
Because it's supposed to be like whatever you can eat at the moment is what you get. We're not responsible for snacks and like off time food. That's your responsibility.
Oh my
because
God.
it's just meant to be. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they're like, no, you can't have a doggy bag. Like, whatever you got is what you're going to get, and then you leave. And, like, I understand that thinking in, like, a practical sense. I understand. You can't just let people come in with a friggin' suitcase and take all of the little mini cereals and head back to their room. But if people are trying to take, like, an orange and, like, a single item here and there, I just feel like there should be something built in to cope with that. I feel like that should be because depending on where you're going to school too, like the cafeteria isn't open at every time of day. So, when I was at Carnegie, we had weird hours because we were doing these like long rehearsals and we were locked up in the dark all day and would lose track of time and shit would be closed and there'd be nowhere to get food. So yeah, you'd want to have something.
I remember we had vending machines that were gimmicked up to take the same card that you used at the cafeteria.
Yep.
And I remember I used the vending machines way more than I ever used the cafeteria. I can't remember what the hours were, but I vaguely have a memory of it always being like, I always missed it. Like I was always like, God damn it, it's closed for lunch. I just fucking missed it. Or like being like 20 minutes late for breakfast and it would be closed or, shit like that all the time. Ugh.
Yeah.
College. The whole way we do everything is so fucking ass backwards.
It's so like, I had a memory the other day of this kid who was like 9 years old and he made keychains to get the debt taken off of his fellow students, like meal plans.
Yes. And we all thought it was a happy, good, feeling good story instead of a sign of like fucking late stage capitalism and how this whole empire is about to go to dust. Literally.
It's like, yeah, this child labor bought meals for, and like the debt that he was paying off, it was something like $6,000 for like, this encompassed not just his school, but like 2 other schools. That's all it was. Just $6,000. And our fucking state can't come up with that money. Are you kidding? Get the fuck out of my face.
Why are elementary school kids incurring debt? I mean, granted, I know it's the family's debt, but y'all know what the fuck I mean. Why is this a thing? Yep. What are we doing? Oh, you can't give everything for free.
Why not?
Why not?
Genuine question.
Somebody explain to me like I'm 5. Oh, because then people won't be able to make money and then have... Okay. So? And?
What else?
Yeah.
I just want to know why the people who, say like people have to work for everything are also the ones that get a lot of shit for free.
All kinds of shit for free.
So much just because of like who they are and
I absolutely love when Congress tells me how I can't have health insurance.
Right.
When they have like some of the best health insurance ever, that they don't pay for. Yeah. I love when they vote against my health interests. That makes me feel grand.
Dudes who don't even know how periods work.
Oh,
just hold it until you have to go to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Then you release it into the toilet. Fucking idiots. Like, what?
I fucking saw something. Some guy thought thought that the tampons were like based on the size of your vagina. So if you need like a
large.
super, you like get the fuck out of here.
L is for light. For those who don't know, and it says L, it's light. It's a light bleed day, not a large vagina. Bless your stupid heart.
Like, what the fuck? I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't have anything to do with anything, but my fucking God. What a fucking joke.
I mean, it doesn't not have anything to do with anything.
I mean, because this was like, to be fair, this particular thing wasn't like politicians. This was just like asking random dudes what they think shit means, and just being like wildly wrong. But also, they were all like grown. They weren't 12-year-old boys. These were grown ass men.
Oh yeah.
Like, come on.
It's astonishing the shit that the things that they think are happening. Like, you know, there was a woman who was talking, it was a post from a while back where apparently like her having to use the bathroom, her professor would get angry because he really did think that women were choosing to have their period during his class, that they could stop it. And
Oh my God.
And he was like a fucking professor and didn't have this kind of basic understanding, and she had to like explain it to him.
How fucking embarrassing. How do you get to that big age and that sort of professional level without this basic fucking understanding of shit? Like, we are half of the population of the world. We exist right alongside of you. How do you not know, like, basic shit about us?
Yep.
We're right here staring at you every day. Every day. It's because you don't fucking talk to us and you don't listen to us.
We don't matter.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
We don't matter.
They don't have to know. That's what it really comes down to, is like the knowledge has never been absolutely necessary for them. They've been shielded from any of that having to be part of their world. And
it's like when you fucking find out, and I know you know this already, when you find out like why there's not birth control for men.
Yup.
Like, I don't know if y'all listeners know, but it's like basically because the side effects were like too uncomfortable for men.
Yeah. So they were like,
they couldn't deal.
You know what? And this is a literal thing that was decided. Women don't demand such a high quality of life. Why don't we give it to them? They'll deal with all of the side effects and won't say anything.
They'll learn how to, and still function, and still like get up and take care of kids and go to school and go to work and just fucking take it, because what is the alternative?
Yep.
And that's how that decision was made.
Which is why I have stopped taking birth control, because it made me so angry.
Good for you.
And I was just like, you know what? I need to demand a better quality of life for myself. So, Owen, you're going to have to deal with that aspect of things. I'm tired of having to be the one to shoulder that all the time.
Yep, just make it her problem.
Yep.
She'll figure it out. And we fucking did.
And we did, though. Because as bad as the side effects were, compared to being actually pregnant.
Yep.
You know?
And then what did we get in thanks for that? Roe versus Wade overturned.
You guys.
But anyway.
That fucking TikTok with that guy in the St. Texas was just handing the credit card over. That was good.
That was so good.
Anyway, kids, I'm sorry about this. So, this, the conversation that she has with Gale turns to her being like, what if I demanded that they allow us out to hunt as part of the thing? And he's just like, God damn. Yeah, do it. This is the time to do it. Make these
Ask
demands.
for everything.
What are you scheduled for? Gale checks his arm. Nuclear history class, where, by the way, your absence has been noted. And she's like, all right, well, come to command with me. And they head over. Plutarch and Coin and their people are already there.
Wait, real quick. I'll have to say, Gale is like, oh, by the way, you're going to want to put Buttercup on that list.
Oh, right. Because he's like, yeah, this is an animal that you're going to have to like feed and provide for. Yeah. And they're not used to that for animals that don't
I don't think
the
concept of useless pets is well known here.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, they'll find him a job. They'll tattoo it on his paw every morning.
I forgot about that line. That was a really good line. Oh, his little paw. So she shows up and she has to do that like centering thing where she tells herself who she is, because everybody looking at her and expecting, it's just kind of freaking her out for a moment here. Yeah. And she sits down and she begins to write. And I love that at one point she is writing without really thinking about what it is she's writing. And when she opens her eyes, it just says, I kill snow.
I love that. And while she's writing, you know, she's thinking to herself, should I be asking for more? Like, is there more shit, like, for my family, for the people who are left? And my skin itches with the ashes of the dead. I feel sickening. And then the scent of blood and roses stings my nose. And the pencil begins to move on its own. And that's when she opens her eyes and it says it. Yeah. If he's captured, I want the privilege. Meanwhile, everybody in the room is like, you're almost done over there, ma'am?
She's just sitting there in complete silence in her own head, not noticing them, just like beginning to check their watches.
Like 20 fucking minutes she's been scribbling.
Instagram. He put his earbuds in, started listening to that podcast he stopped when she walked in.
Oh my God. She says Finnick isn't the only one with attention problems. But, yeah, so she's like, yeah, okay, I'm ready. This is the deal. I'll be your Mockingjay. And she gives them a moment because they're all like congratulating themselves and like, oh, fucking thank God. Finally, we can get started. Everybody is like congratulating themselves, and Coin is just like unimpressed.
Yeah.
Impassive with her eyes locked on Katniss. Because I feel like Coin understands that
there was a reason.
Exactly. Yeah, she wasn't just writing for 20 minutes that I'll be your Mockingjay. There's more to come.
Yeah, so she's like, all right, stipulations. My family gets to keep our cat. My tiniest request sets off an argument. The Capitol rebels see this as a non-issue. Of course I can keep my pet. While those from 13 spell out what extreme difficulties this presents. Finally, it's worked out that we'll be moved to the top level, which has the luxury of an 8-inch window above ground. Buttercup may come and go to do his business. He will be expected to feed himself. If he misses curfew, he will be locked out. If he causes any security problems, he'll be shot immediately.
Jesus Christ. Jesus, that last part. Oof. Katniss is like, that sounds fine. It's not so different than how he's been living. Except for the shooting part.
So then we're going to be allowed to go into the woods and hunt. And this one, Plutarch is like, wait. But Coin says, no, yeah, we'll do that. 1/4-mile radius, you'll have trackers. Sure, let's do it.
And Gale is like, when she says, I want to hunt with Gale, he's like, yeah, we won't go far, and you could have all the meat for your kitchen. Like, I was like, sir, let her make her demands. Just hush.
Right? I agree. Yes. And then when she says, Gale, I'll need him with me to do this. With you, how? Off camera? By your side at all times? Do you want him presented as your new lover? Coin asks. She hasn't said this with any particular malice. Quite the contrary, her words are very matter-of-fact. But my mouth still drops open in shock. What? I think we should continue the current romance. A quick defection from Peeta could cause the audience to lose sympathy for her, says Plutarch, especially since they think she's pregnant with his child. Agreed. So on screen, Gale can simply be portrayed as a fellow rebel. Is that all right? Says Coin. I just stare at her. She repeats herself impatiently. For Gale, will that be sufficient? We can always work him in as your cousin, says Fulvia. We're not cousins, Gale and I say together.
Yeah.
Right, but we should probably keep that up for appearance's sake on camera, says Plutarch. Off camera, he's all yours. And she's just like,
what the
my
fuck?
God, really?
Same. And then the fact that they all are just like, all of them are just like, oh, she's over Peeta. That's yesterday's news, and she's with Gale now. it's a little like insulting.
Yeah.
But it's also weird because like we know that the Peeta romance is fake as far as like for the games. Everybody here knows that it was just for the games. So it's not that they are like so wildly off base, but there's something about the whole thing, the way it goes, is like just really insulting to Katniss, it feels like to me.
Well, they're treating her like she's a character in something and not a person.
Oh, well, that too.
You know,
that
like
too.
the way description of like, well, I think the audience will lose sympathy for her. Like, it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, like what we're gonna. Okay, so on screen you can be this way, but off screen you can do whatever you want. Like they don't care that she's a real person, and they don't care whether her feelings. Like they don't care.
They do not.
They don't care.
And finally, she says, "I want Peeta to be pardoned. No form of punishment. There's dead silence." The same goes for the other captured tributes, Joanna and Enobaria. Frankly, I don't care about Enobaria, the vicious District 2 tribute. In fact, I dislike her. But it seems wrong to leave her out. No, says Coin flatly. Yes, I shoot back. It's not their fault you abandoned them in the arena. Who knows what the Capitol's doing to them? They'll be tried with other war criminals and treated as the tribunal sees fit, she says. They'll be granted immunity. I feel myself rising from my chair, my voice full and resonant. You will personally pledge this in front of the entire population of District 13 and the remainder of 12 soon. Today. It will be recorded for future generations. You will hold yourself and your government responsible for their safety, or you'll find yourself another Mockingjay. And again, y'all really thought you could just not, like, promise to keep Peeta safe and she would work with you? I think this just points to how little people really understood her motivations and things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it pisses me off because this is such a great moment for her. And what we hear in the background is, oh, there she is.
That's the Mockingjay.
Right? Wait till you see her with a costume and gunfire in the background with a little bit of hint of smoke. Oh, gross.
Yep. She can't just be. It's all part of this package that they're trying to assemble here.
And she is so pissed off. She hears this and she wants to fucking turn and give them the stink eye of all stink eyes. But she understands that right now her attention has to be on Coin.
Yeah.
And she cannot, like, she can't waver. So she has to, like, let that go. But I know she's fucking seething.
And it's just like, you know, it makes me think of what happened with Finnick and the way that he seemed to, like, you and I interpreted it as he really seemed to think that Katniss didn't care at all about Peeta. And when he saw her upset at Peeta's injury, it took a moment to be like, wait, And I feel like these folks didn't believe that she cared about Peeta the way that she does. Like, just because she doesn't necessarily have the kind of romantic interest that they were playing for the cameras doesn't mean that this kid means so little to her that she'd be willing to just allow him to be tried and executed without a fight.
Right. And taking it even further than her feelings for Peeta, if they had any understanding of who she was really as a person, they would have known that she would have made this demand for Enobaria and Johanna as well. Like, Katniss is not a leave people behind type of person.
Yep.
And, like, it's so funny because the things that make her so compelling as the Mockingjay is what's in play in this moment.
Yes.
And they want the Mockingjay, right? They're begging for it, but when she shows up, they're just like, "Oh, who's this?
Yeah.
What's going on here?" Like, how do you not know that the person that is going to be like the face of your revolution really fucking feels this shit for real? And like, even though she's not like a revolutionary yet, in like the way that they want her to be, that the way they are planning on using her, she has, how strongly she feels about things has been sort of, you know, consistent. And that they think that she would just leave people behind that she might have an opportunity to save. That's the difference, right?
Yes.
Like if she has an opportunity to save someone, she's going to try to use her power to do that. And they don't know her any better than the Capitol knows her.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and the fact that like something is so appealing for the camera, but once you have to deal with the demand in person, like, you know, they want her to be somebody who stands for justice, but she's fucking
but
doing
not like that.
Just like, ugh, God, tiresome.
Yep.
So eventually, Coin says, "All right, but you'd better perform."
Oh my God, she's like fucking Snow all over again.
Honestly. And this is when she says, "Just one more thing, I kill Snow." For the first time ever, I see the hint of a smile on the president's lips. When the time comes, I'll flip you for it. Maybe she's right. I certainly don't have the sole claim against Snow's life, and I think I can count on her getting the job done. Fair enough. So she takes off, and Plutarch is like, "Oh God, I really could go for some fucking coffee right now." Fulvia says we didn't think it would be quite so rigid here, not in the higher ranks.
They thought they was going to get special treatment.
Plutarch's like, "Yeah, we thought there'd be like, you know, you guys had the hob. We thought that would be a thing here where we could get what we needed.
A little side action, he calls it."
Oh, well, wars don't last forever. And there's just something about that of just being like, eventually we'll be treated better than all of you, the way that it's intended to be, you know?
I'll be right back into my natural order pretty soon. This is a minor inconvenience, a temporary, you know, lowering of my status, but there's no way this could be my life going forward, right? This is just a hiccup. Yeah. And so then they hand her this sketchbook. And she opens it, and it's a picture of her in this black uniform. And she knows immediately that this is Cinna's work.
Yeah.
She knows without a doubt. And they confirm, and then Plutarch says that, Cinna made me promise not to show you this book until you had decided to be the Mockingjay on your own. I was very tempted to show this to you, believe me. But, you know, I didn't. And she's looking at each page, and the uniform sounds badass.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. It is carefully tailored layers of body armor, hidden weapons, special reinforcements over her heart, and a note on the last page that just says, in Cinna's writing, "I'm still betting on you." And she attempts to ask, like, well, when did he do all this? And we find out that he did it a few weeks before the game started.
Yeah.
And that there's not only sketches that they have these uniforms, they were made. And that also Beatty has got something really special, I'm assuming like a badass weapon. I can't wait to see it. Waiting for her down in his armory. And then Gale says, "You're going to be the best dressed rebel in history." Because he also knew. But everybody wanted her to come to this choice on her own, you know.
Yeah.
So even though they've been pressuring her, in their minds, they've been, like, restrained.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? I appreciate you putting it like that. Like, yeah, they really are over here just like, yeah, we let you come to this decision on your own. I mean, I guess you did, but it feels like that's not what happened, really.
It really doesn't. Like, yeah, they let her wander around and hide in closets, so I guess that was their version of letting her come to her own decision. But I don't recall anybody sitting down and saying, hey, whatever you want to do is okay with us.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do this, you can just live here and be a soldier, and we won't say another word about it. I don't recall that being a conversation.
Sure don't. Surely don't. So yeah, the fact that like Cinna left her, it really just feels like he knew what he was doing with her costume, and the transformation into the Mockingjay was a wrap for him. He was aware.
And yeah, and that he was, keyed in with the Capitol Underground, enough that he knew Plutarch was in it. He knew to give the sketches to Plutarch. So he was, and I don't know if I would have to imagine, well, I don't know, but I don't know if Cinna was hooked into the Underground before he met Katniss, and Katniss just provided a big spark, and everybody was like, this is our moment. Because, honestly, I don't know if this is what the book intends, but this is such a big-scale revolution, and I feel like Katniss is like a spark, but there had to have been groundwork laid, before she was a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if Cinna was part of that groundwork prior, or if he meets her and then is changed, because he was such an interesting person, and he was so different than everyone else we met in the Capitol when we first met him in the first book.
It's true.
So part of me is secretly like, oh, Cinna was always down. He been down.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, this whole thing, what he explains, the plan is that they're going to film her to do these like little propaganda shorts, and then they're going to cut into the feed at the Capitol to air them. And she's like,
yeah,
what? How? And he's like, we've got Beatty, and he was like key in putting their system together in the first place. So we're pretty confident he's going to be able to wiggle in there somehow.
Yeah. And they call it airtime assault.
He calls the spots propos for propaganda, which is something about propos. I'm just like, ugh, gross. That feels like such a bro-y, like, intranet thing. It feels like the sort of thing that if they were to be a company, they would delete all of the vowels.
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
oh my god.
Anyway, so this is when Fulvia, let's find the most stunning Mockingjay look possible, and then work your personality up to deserving it.
Oh my god.
You already have her in uniform, says Gale. Yes, but is she scarred and bloody? Is she glowing with the fire of rebellion? Just how grimy can we make her without disgusting people? At any rate, she has to be something. I mean, obviously, this won't cut it.
And she cups her face in her hands.
So well intended and yet so insulting.
Oh yeah, and she's like not bothered at all.
Welcome to the Capitol. I mouth back.
Yeah. But she's holding this book from Cinna, and it is really reassuring to her. She thinks to herself, this must be the right decision if Cinna wanted it. And so they head down to this room where they're going to like get started on all this. And they get into this weird elevator that she's not really familiar with. And it needs a key to even activate. And there's a slot in the elevator that she hadn't even noticed, took a key before.
Yeah.
And it goes down 30 plus levels, which like, wow.
Yeah, she was not aware shit went this deep.
And that could be like the tagline for the book. She was not aware.
It goes all the way to the bottom.
I'm sorry. I don't know why that
You just got real tickled by that.
It goes all the way to the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, guys. That really did get me. But so yeah, they get out, and then this fucking grate comes down over the elevator door, which I don't love that. And then there's a guard out of nowhere, and Plutarch is just like, "Hey, how you doing?" And the guard is like, no.
Yeah.
And Katniss is like, something is not right down here. There's the fucking weird-ass elevator. It's all claustrophobic, and it smells weird. And she looks at Gale, and she's like, yeah, Gale's picking up on the vibe, too. Something's not right. Plutarch is not picking up on the vibes.
So like, hey, bro. Oh, so sorry. Do you want to call him? They'll give him a call. This is not picking up at all.
Because when you live like Plutarch lived and existed in the space that he existed in, you really can be oblivious. You can just move through the world with your privilege, just opening every door, answering every question for you, right? You don't have to fucking pay. That's the thing about a lot of the people in the Capitol that we've met, is they move with such assurance that they have every right to be in whatever space they happen to be occupying at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They never have to peep like the real situation. So yeah, this dude is just like, hey there, buddy. and Buddy is like, no, you can't be here.
Yeah, this dude is very... If there's a mistake, you'll figure out that it was a mistake elsewhere. I am not entertaining you here in this place. Mm-hmm. And she is just, everything feels off about it, and she can see Gale is picking that up as well. And so they do a little thingy where they just work together so well.
They really do, yeah.
She gives him a look and like drops her sketchbook. The guard bends automatically to pick it up, and he bends also and pretends like to knock his head. No, silly me, and holds on to the guard for a minute as if he's like been knocked off balance just to distract this guy. And she is able to just like run up to one of the doors.
She goes to the room that they were headed to because they can see they're right outside the door where they're supposed to be. And when she drops the book, she hears a sound. It says, from behind door 3908 comes a sound, just a tiny whimper, like something like a cow dog might make to avoid being struck. Only it's all too human and familiar. And that's when they drop the book and do their little routine.
Yeah. And
she takes that moment, darts around the guard, just pushes the door right open, which I thought was weird. It wasn't locked because she doesn't have a key or anything.
Agree.
She just pushes the door open. And it says, and I find them half naked, bruised, and shackled to the wall, my prep team. And that's how it fucking ends.
Yeah.
So I have questions. Like, they were going to meet, like, they were heading with Plutarch to start the Mockingjay process, right?
Correct.
Turning her into this Mockingjay, talking about costumes and what are we going to do with her face. So it says my prep team, and I'm like, is this the new team they're taking her to meet? Because why would they be beaten and shackled? That doesn't make any sense. And then I had a horrific thought where I was like, what if it's the prep team I know from the Capitol? But then that doesn't make sense because how would they have gotten them? Like, so I am just saying to all of you, I am confusion. Because I don't want it to be her prep team from the Capitol. Not that I don't want to see them again, but I don't want them to be in some underground bunker room shackled to the fucking wall by the people who are supposed to be Katniss's allies now. Because what the fuck? You know what I mean? But also, like, I don't, if they're taking her, like, if this is just a room of people, well, she says my prep team. So, you guys, it's gotta be, the I can't remember anybody's names. It's like Octavius. I can't remember anybody's names.
Flavius and Octavia. And
okay, I smushed them together and said Octavius. But like, if that's them, I don't even know how we got here. I don't know. Did they kidnap them? Did they choose to come? If they chose to come, why are they being held like this? Why are they being hidden from? I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to imagine a world in which someone comes to them and says, "Do you want to come and help Katniss?" Because they weren't bad people. They were just Capitol people who, in comparison to the reality of the rest of Panem, they seemed like terrible people. But they weren't terrible people. They were just products of their environment, right?
Yep. In my opinion. I can understand if other people aren't willing to give them that grace, but
I mean, it's a very slippery slope
Yeah.
because you can say about people in real life who are aware of the sufferings of others and just don't give a fuck about it because it's so removed from their day-to-day life, and that kind of low key makes you a terrible person. So what the prep team is a good example of actually is how we want the bad guys to be unlikable bad guys, TM, right? And sometimes they're not. Sometimes you meet them and they're lots of fun and they're funny and they, you can have a yuck with them and they might like the same TV shows and movies that you like or whatever. And then you get down to what their values are and you're like, oh my God, you are a disgusting piece of shit. What the fuck?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Not everybody is wearing a black hat that's a villain. So I guess really they aren't good people. Maybe I need to reevaluate my what's the word I'm looking for?
Criteria?
No, my opinion of them. I would like my description of them or whatever. But
Evaluation?
yeah, because maybe they aren't really good people. Maybe they're just like, that thing where like you meet somebody and they're very likable.
Oh, yeah.
But then they turn out to be awful. That thing we all have had happen to us in the last 10 years multiple times. That kind of situation. Because I think they really are complicit. They are aware of the brutality of the games and they treat them like it's just a game. They like Katniss enough because they spent some time with her and they got her all pretty and she was a lot of fun to watch on TV, but then they went on about the rest of their lives and really could not give a fuck about those people in a real way. So yeah, maybe they're not good people. Not that I wish for them to be shackled and bruised and mistreated. Like I know I'm kind of going in circles now because it's kind of complicated.
It is
actually,
complicated,
when you dig into it.
I mean, there's that moment earlier where Gail said, if I could snap my fingers and make everybody who works for the Capitol drop dead, I would. And that's a pretty dramatic position to take,
Yeah, it really is. It's on his fucking Anakin Skywalker shit, right? He's just gonna... Okay. But, yeah, I guess the thing is, too, the conversations that you end up having from this book is that, like, things are not black and white, no matter how much we want them to be. They aren't,
Yeah.
Like, Plutarch is, like, low-key, I guess, a good guy because he's on the side of the rebellion. But is he? Is he really a good guy?
I mean, that's the ongoing question about, like, all of this. With District 13, it's just, like, they're meant to be the good guys, but it feels like they're not right now. Like, they're the better alternative to being out in the woods starving, trying to scrape by. But there's a real feeling of like, at what cost, though?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's going to continue to get murky. I think this book is probably going to be the grayest of all of them. I'm going to probably be swinging wildly back and forth, because it is. I don't know how complicated it's going to get, but it could get very, very complicated. These types of big questions, don't have easy answers. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, though. Yeah. And I have no idea. Don't ask me, like, what I think is going to happen next, because I just do not know. I do not know.
I will ask, how do you think it's going to be watching Katniss film these propos?
Oh, I think she's going to hate every second of it, and they're going to get so irritated and frustrated with her. Yeah, they're going to be really, really. They're going to be so angry because she's not going to be giving them what they want, because she's not a performer. But she's going to have moments when it's real, right? When she's really feeling it, then it's undeniable,
right?
But she's not like a perform on camera type of person. We've seen her have awkward moment after awkward moment. I feel like Coin is going to say multiple times, we should have taken the boy first, I feel like it's going to be a lot of that. But also, like, if this is really the prep team and they're being treated like this, Katniss has just agreed to this deal, and this is the very first thing that happens. Like, does she immediately go upstairs and say, "Fuck you, I take it all back"? Like, how did it? If it's the team and they're being treated this way, they have got to get Katniss back on board. And I mean, her options, she doesn't have a lot of options. Like, we jokingly said, they didn't tell her, you can just live here and don't worry about being a Mockingjay. It'll be fine. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't have a lot of options. And I don't know how she gets out of being the Mockingjay, because she is, whether she performs it or not, she is it. But man, this is not as a first day of agreeing to be a part of your plan, and this is the first fucking thing I see is that you've done this.
Yeah.
Why would I want to work with you? How are you different? How are you different than what we're fighting against? In a real way.
Yep.
In a how you treat people, what's acceptable to do to people kind of way. Also, I think one of the things Katniss is going to have to reckon with is her hatred of the Capitol is going to be not exactly the same way District 13 hates the Capitol.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, like, Katniss in the games was forced to become a little bit of a monster in order to survive, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Like to be willing to kill someone else. It like Peter is saying, it changes everything that you are, right? But Katniss is young and has grown up in a society where the hatred of the Capitol is kind of like buried. It's sort of like not really openly discussed. It's sort of just like seething right under the surface, to the point where the only person she ever really articulated those feelings out loud was Gale, Mm-hmm. But now she's in a place where it's hating the Capitol all day, every day, with your whole chest, you know what I mean? And so I think that there is when you are in a group, in a society that dehumanizes other people, even if they are wrong, like there's a dehumanization of the people in the Capitol, that I feel like if District 13 really has the prep team shackled like this, and the only way the prep team could get to 13 is if 13 brought them there. So it's not like the prep team was sneaking in and got caught, right? Right. It's because you don't see them as being worth humane treatment. And I don't know if Katniss has gotten to the point where she sees everybody in the Capitol as being worthy of inhumanity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, she's seen a lot of the Capitol, and she's seen like their excess and their sort of superficiality and their silliness, But is that the same as being like, oh, they're absolutely worth being beat to death? Like, I don't know if she's gotten there yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about, like, when you're used to being able to just say it, mm-hmm. and how much more, because I mean, that is something that I am as guilty of as anybody, when you just talk about like, yeah, kill all the billionaires, eat their bodies like cannibals, ha ha. And it's like, when I'm saying it, there's a winky sort of energy to it. But I don't think that's true of everybody when they're saying it. And I think that this is what leads to certain actions where like things get really out of control very quickly, because people have rage that they don't know what to do with, and you've just offered a target. And whether the target is really the point or not, they just need to get it out of their system somehow. And this is just there, Mm-hmm. And that's in a situation where it's like, much less direct in a lot of ways than what's been going on with the Capitol, where you can point to specific people who have done things that are horrific, and you can point to your own friends who have been plucked up and put in these awful situations. So, yeah, I could see what you mean.
It's just like this, and it's still early, so I'm not like judging 13 completely harshly, but so far, at least, it feels very much like, oh, this is just like an inverse of what the Capitol is, right? And I'm sure that there'll be more context as I get into the book, and that will, become a much more layered. I'll have more to reckon with, right?
Gotcha.
But just with these very first chapters, and that's the thing that you always are like afraid of, like when you look at like. So if you take like real life, and you guys will forgive me, I'm going to just be very, very general because I'm not a history buff and I don't have Google open on my phone. But we all know that there have been times in history where a country has been like held under very violent occupation, whether it's colonialism or whatever, and then these countries fight for their independence, right? And maybe they get lucky and they get it, but then what happens is they get some sort of maniac dictator that gets installed.
Right. Yep.
And then you just have a different type of terrible fucking situation,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that 13 is like a dictatorship and it's awful, but I'm just saying at the very beginning, I'm getting hints of how is this much better? What's the fucking, you can't destroy the master's house with his tools,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's, and you're just going to end up building the same shit that he built. And it's giving that a little bit at the very beginning here. But we're gonna hold tight. We're gonna hold judgment, and see what shakes out.
Man, I am really interested in the rest of this book with you.
I'm scared.
Good, yeah. But also, but mostly, yes, good.
It was only the first 3 chapters, and this shit was 2 hours long, y'all. I'm sorry. We only had like 1.5 tangents, too.
Listen, between this and how long we talked this morning, Sean and I started at a little after 11 this morning. It is now 3:30 p.m. I've been at my desk this whole time.
This is like, yeah, this is about normal, though. This is like a Saturday Song of Ice and Fire recording. Too. Like every fucking Saturday we do this. I don't know why you're acting all surprised.
I just, I forget. But yeah, I'm just really excited about the questions brought up in this final book. I know, like I said, there's a lot of differing opinions out there, but it'll certainly make for great conversation.
Ooh, there's differing opinions?
Oh yeah,
like
this final book is a really divisive one.
So I know you can't tell me much, but I'm going to ask, divisive in the sense that people liked it and some people hated it, or divisive in like people didn't agree with the story, or I don't know how much you can answer.
I won't answer any of that.
Any of it?
No. Sorry.
So you can't tell me if people liked the book or not?
I mean, some people did. Yeah.
Some people did and some people did not.
I mean, that's how it is with all the books.
You know what I mean. Yeah, I am booing. Thank you. Thank you. Tomato, tomato, tomato.
Oh my God, you guys. I really love her trying to get shit out of me. Have you started Night Country yet?
No, I haven't. Okay. Like my mental.
Don't for now. Yeah, don't do it right now. At this point, it's not a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like when you try and sort of trick me out of getting spoilers.
Sometimes I'm so sincere though. Like I'm not really trying to get I'm trying to phrase it in a way so that you don't spoil me, but you also answer my question. But there's just no way around it because you can't tell me anything, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, like I believe that you're not really trying to do the thing, but you're attempting to get a little of a sense of something.
I'm trying to get I'm trying to get a sense of like what it was like when people were engaging with this material in real time. That's always what I'm trying to get out of you because I missed it, right? So I'm always trying to get like a little taste of what was in the air at the time when the thing was happening, because I was not in the air when the thing was happening.
And I'll be straight up with that as well. Like what was it like in real time? I wasn't part of the discourse when these books were coming out, and the communities that exist now weren't active the way they are back then. So
when did these come out? Let me check this came out in 2010? It's that old?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that old.
So, like, I read these, like, pretty soon after they came out, I feel like. But I don't know what the reception was really like at the time. I can tell you how people talk about them now, but that's not really the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't have an adequate answer for you in summary.
In summary.
I don't know. Sorry about that. All right. So, y'all know what time it is. We have got to greet our new patrons.
Yay!
Yay! So, we have got this week Ms. Washburny. I don't know what that name is, but I like it. Washburny. I don't know. I like it. Jess Rydecki and Selly. I hope I'm saying this correctly. I think it might be Selly Botlin. I don't. Selly Botlin. Apologies for struggling over names, guys. I just want to get it right really bad. And so
I admire that in you, because I'm so bad at that. But I admire that you try really hard to get people's names right.
It's just, it's
important.
Yeah, it's important, and it's like I'm so aware of Americans just being like, oh, you have a name I've never heard because you're from a different country. I'm just going to call you Tom. And I just resent that so much that, like, that's been done to people. I'm like, I'm going to personally make up for it, which is also stupid and not really helpful, probably. But that's the place I'm coming from on a lot of this. So, anyway, so yeah, thank you guys so much for becoming patrons. Really, really appreciate you. And I'm thinking about reinstating the $1 tier just as like a tip jar, because there's a lot of people out there who have mentioned, like, I don't mind not getting tiers, like access to stuff, but I would like to just be able to throw you a little cash. So I may start that up again. And probably, you'll just get access to whatever's been made available to the $1 and up tier up to now, which is like the back catalog of stuff, but not anything that's more recent. Yeah. So the, Sookie Stackhouse stuff you wouldn't have access to. Like anything that had been $5 and up for the past few years, you would not be able to get at. But there's a lot of other stuff. And there's also just like the community itself. $1 and up has some channels on Discord that non-patrons can't access. So yeah, I might do that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good idea, especially if people have been expressing interest in other ways to, support the show that aren't currently available. I say do it.
Yeah, I still, even though I got rid of the tier, a lot of people stayed on at the $1 tier. So it's not like everybody jumped ship, and apparently it still holds some appeal. And also, just a reminder, folks, that we're doing sort of this like witchy book club thing once a month. We just had our second meeting last Saturday, and the channels in the Discord are open now with the forum for choosing the book for the third month. And I say third month, we in this last meeting decided a month isn't enough for us to get through the whole book and integrate anything that we have read into a practice. So we're stretching it out, and every book it's going to give us 2 months. So when we meet, we're going to be doing it at like the halfway point. And that way we'll be getting most of the way through the book, having a meeting, and then we'll be able to have time to read the rest and have the final meetup. I think that'll be a lot better. I had been hoping that we could do like every 2 weeks sort of meetings, but I just can't fit that in.
Yeah.
And most people aren't able to like get their hands on the book right away. So it takes some time to order things for them to get shipped, especially if you're like not in the US, and or if you want to get something from the library and it's out. So there was a lot of that, and then just the process of actually setting aside time to read
Yeah.
That's tough. And
People are often very ambitious about what they're planning for the month is going to be, you know, and budgeting of time and when they're going to fit stuff in. Of course, you have no idea what I'm
I
talking
feel like
about.
this is really rude.
And then
Okay, all right.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, the way you're cackling, it's as if you think I'm talking about someone in particular, and I promise you, I'm not talking about anybody that is on the call with me right now. I mean,
What? Never. But yeah, I think that we were ambitious, and we also, the books aren't just reading a book the way that you do for fiction. If it's for witchcraft and you are somebody who practices, you are trying to set aside time to actually attempt to do some of the things that are mentioned, some of the rituals or the approaches to prayer or divination or whatever. And that takes a whole other kind of setting time aside. So you're attempting to do two things, and that's a lot more energy and everything. So yeah, we're doing that. We're picking out the next book, and it looks like it's like leaning towards a book about sigil magic, which will be interesting. I have agreed to no longer suggest books because my books always are the ones that get voted to win, and I feel like I have an unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage, yeah.
So I've decided to just recuse myself from making suggestions. I will still vote, but I'm not going to put ideas in people's heads.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, join the Discord. I try to include the link to that on all the show notes, and you know, just come hang out with us and see how you feel about it. And it's there's just a lot of interesting conversation because a lot of us aren't super serious, and we're like not averse to getting serious, but there's a lot of sort of fumbling around, figuring out what works for us and what speaks to us and what doesn't. And I think that's kind of the fun part. Especially as somebody who's a newbie and some things don't resonate with me, and finding out, do other people feel the same way? And sometimes they do, and they have great suggestions for alternatives. And it's just what appeals to me about witchcraft is how nebulous the whole concept of it is. And you can make it whatever you need it to be. So anyway, join us over there. Come to patreon.com/unspoiled and become a patron, or just follow us for free. And that way you can get all the updates on whatever's going on. And I hope you guys have enjoyed our coverage so far, and that you're as excited as I am to get into the rest of this book. It's about to be crazy. All right.
I can't wait.
Until
I'm
next
very
time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Are you coming to the tree where dead men call out for his love to flee? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.